Hey guys, Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex. This video is coming to you a bit later than it was supposed to. I did record a YouTube video when I first completed this project, then posted some pictures on Instagram, and I shipped off the package to my friend TJ, owner of Black Bear Tactical Concepts. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, but long story short, I somehow deleted the YouTube video that I hadn't uploaded yet. I think I had just recorded it, and I deleted it before I uploaded, or before I had a chance to upload, obviously. And then thought I had uploaded it and was just needed to like code it and put put tags, put a thumbnail, all that stuff. But then I went searching through my uploaded videos and I could not find it. So it all kind of worked out because TJ wasn't happy with the flashlight that we had attached to the sheath system, so he wanted to send it back to me anyway. And that just gave me an opportunity to re-record the video so you guys can all see a little bit more in detail what this project actually involved. So this is a lot of fun. I want to give a shout out to the knife makers involved in this, as well as to TJ's company, Black Bear Tactical Concepts. So guys, TJ makes tactical and camping gear. He does consultations, bug out bags, and in particular he makes these tins, custom tins. I've also seen him doing like packing them full of useful gear and things like that. So obviously a lot of people are into survival tins. So if you're interested in putting a survival tin on a sheath that I'm building you, and you want to consider getting a tin and or a tin kit where it's got a bunch of stuff in it, TJ is a really great option. So I would definitely look into reaching out to him. I can get this stuff from him directly, or if you ever wanted to, you could definitely get the stuff from him and send it to me for a sheath project with your knife. So that's always going to be an option. All right, so there we go. Black Bear Tactical Concepts. Good guy, good gear. Now over to this right here. This is a Cold Steel Double Agent 2. I had actually never even heard of this knife, let alone handled one, let alone put it into a sheath, until TJ sent this one to me. And it's a cool knife. It's a nice little design for a large hand like my own. I kind of lock into this pretty well, both in forward and reverse grip. So I find that to be pretty cool. Just a nice little blade. I'd probably only use for self-defense personally, but I imagine Cold Steel does produce some good stuff. So I would probably trust this out in the field as well. But I'm going to leave knife reviewing to the knife reviewers. That's just my little take on it. Now the real highlight I want to make here is for the maker of these beauties. This is a Bulgarian knife company called Tanev Family Knives. That's T-A-N-E-V Family Knives. These are Bowler 690 steel. And actually, let me go ahead and read off a sheet. TJ sent me some specs on it. So the makers, Tanev Family Knives, they're from Bulgaria. It's Bowler 690 carbon steel. The handles are pine cone, and Voodoo Resins made these handles. I think, honestly, guys, between the texturing and the aesthetics on these, personally, these are the nicest pine cone handles I've ever seen. I know a lot of people really like a high polish, like a clear amber resin kind of thing with their pine cone. That is beautiful too. Not knocking it. I'm just saying this almost feels more like a G10 or something like that with the texturing. And I just love the translucent look with the orange. It all kind of ties together very nicely for me. So this is currently my favorite pine cone handle that I've ever held or handled or seen, for that matter. So I'm in love with these guys. And yeah, it's got custom jimping and engraving, all that good stuff. So these are really, really nice knives, guys. Of course, I do not test any of my customers' knives. That's something I just don't feel right doing. But quality when you're holding it. And I can tell you right now, guys, I really, really dig these knives. I mean, I'm kind of a knife snob, as many of you probably already know, and holy cow, these are like blowing my mind. Everything from the profile to the feel in the hand, and it just feels like a good heavy-duty use knife. I don't know if they have model names or anything like that, or if it's like a full custom build so they don't have models, but man, these are spectacular. So all right, without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the work that I did for these. So starting with this here, the Cold Steel Double Agent 2. TJ asked me to put it in gray rattler. So what I did was I actually fused a layer of gray rattler to a layer of flat black, because I thought having a thicker sheath plus putting that black lining in there would just look really slick. And then looking at the geometry of the knife, I knew right from the get-go that we were probably going to need a retention strap, because if you look at the front of the handle, well, first off, normally when the Kydex maker is setting up to do a sheath for a knife, you're looking for where you're going to achieve retention on that knife. You want it to have to bypass some kind of pinch point on the sheath to click in and lock there, and then you're going to need it to bypass it on the way out to draw the knife out. So when you look at something like this, a couple options appear right out of the gate. I can see this lobe on the handle looks appealing. It looks like it would be enough positive contour to really lock into, or using the blade stock inside the finger ring. Some other knives like the Topps Cockpit Commander, that's how I do the sheaths for those, or the Colonel blades. Sometimes I'll do it like that. But with this, if you look, the blade stock is actually really thin. This is only a little bit thicker than 0.08 inches. So if I were to try to get the retention on the finger ring, I don't think it would actually work too well because of how thin this is. I just don't have faith that the Kydex would come together and hold together strong enough to create a positive retention point that wouldn't have rattle in it as well. So what I've done instead was just made a nice positive locking sheath. When I say locking, I mean, well, let me back that term out of there. I made a nice sheath that will grip the knife, but the retention on it is pretty minimal. You can see it's already rattled free a little bit. If I shake real hard, it will fall out, so I'm just not going to do that. But what we want to do with a knife like this, I could have used this point here on the handle to get retention, but look where your fingers need to go. Your middle finger is there. So you'd have been limited to sort of a 2-finger, 2.5-finger grip. And to me, that's just not really ideal. So what I opted for here instead was to carve out a finger groove so that you can actually get your finger into the ring, and to go with a retention strap to actually hold the knife in place. With that strap on there, this is not coming free. You can shake it till the cows come home, and that is absolutely not going to come out of there by accident. What you need to do to open it up is just to lift from the very tip of the strap, and it'll pop free. Now what I like to do, you can just draw from here, but the strap just feels like it's in the way. You do stand a chance at least of buzzing it every time you go by it and creating little cuts in it, maybe even deepening one of those cuts over time and causing this strap to be weaker or useless altogether. So to avoid any kind of blade contact with the strap, which is my recommendation, you can either brush it out of the way and just have your fingers in between the strap and the knife, or what I think is the better idea is to just tuck it out of the way. And especially considering your belt travels across here, there's going to be a little bit of a pinch point right here. So if you tucked this snap hub in between your belt and the side of the sheath, I believe that would be firmly in there, not going anywhere, and you'd be all right. Alternatively, you could also pop it free and tuck it down in behind the tech lock. So this will actually be inside your in between your pants and your belt, or even tuck it inside your pants. Any which way, I really like getting the strap out of the way so that you can freely draw your blade out and go to work. Now I know that some scenarios, like an emergency situation, dictates that you really need access to your knife quickly, so tucking the strap is going to take a low priority. In that case, so is the security of the strap, in my opinion. I would just unsnap it and grab that sucker out of there as quick as you can. You know what? If you cut the strap, these are like $5. So it's not something that can't be replaced in the future, but your life obviously is a one and done. So make sure you use responsibly. If you have a sheath with a snap on it, just be aware that that is a possibility. You need to be able to maneuver it and draw in a hurry. So always train with your gear. Your sheath is part of that equation. All right, on to the meat and potatoes of this video. I want to show you the system that TJ asked me to build him for these. This is pretty sick, guys. He asked me to build him an Alligator-Clad Kydex sheath. So this is authentic. This is real alligator skin. I know a couple guys out there that are using like embossed cowhide, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I love embossed cowhide. I use it occasionally too. But when a customer asks for alligator skin, you don't give them cowhide. You give them the real, genuine article. And in this case, we are looking at the first project I've ever done, and currently only project I've ever done, with natural alligator hide. When I say natural, I mean it's not dyed. It has not been barrel dyed the way that you see almost all the other gator projects out there. So this stuff is extremely, extremely difficult to work with. In the future, if anybody wants the natural gator, which I fully encourage, I think it's gorgeous. I mean, I personally think this is the coolest looking because you get the real color of the animal. But if you want natural gator skin, I'm going to absolutely have to charge extra for it because of how difficult it is to work with. It's also a little more expensive. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. I would think that if you have to go through the trouble of barrel dyeing something, that's an extra step, and therefore, and materials, and therefore you'd charge more. Every time I see natural, it costs more. So maybe it's something with the preservation process, but anyway, natural gator definitely is going to cost more, and gator is already pretty expensive to add to a Kydex sheath. So just be braced and prepared for a little bit of sticker shock if you inquire about that. I will always give you the best price that I can possibly give you. So I'm not trying to nickel and dime anybody out there, but obviously I have to cover my expenses and make money on these projects. So, all right, here we go. So what we're looking at is a piggyback setup. And as you guys are well aware, there are multiple types of piggyback setups. I've been kind of trying to pioneer the whole world of what I call breakaway piggybacks, which is where you can have two knives piggyback together but quickly separate, and each one has their own carry system, so you can immediately transition to carrying them individually. It's a really great option if you plan on maybe, you know, hiking in to do some wilderness camping, but then you want to do a little foraging or something in your immediate area, or maybe you want to go on some long hikes. You might only need one of those knives, and it's really great to be able to separate, lose a little bit of weight off of your system, and then go out with whatever system it is, whatever configuration of the system that you want to. So that's why I do breakaway piggybacks. This one kind of looks like a breakaway, but guys, it's actually a fixed. And this is sort of something I've started to do a little bit more lately. And I wanted to just go through the spiel here so that everybody would be aware of what it is and how to order it if you're interested. So what this essentially is an adapter plate that I've put over the end of the larger knife sheath, and it's got just a recess there that allows me to put hardware up through, so the hardware is not making contact with the face of the larger sheath. It's just a good way of creating hidden hardware that allows me to mount the small sheath to the large sheath, but without compromising on something like having the backside of the hardware, the mounting hardware, like digging and scratching into the surface of the skin on the larger knife. Now, most of the time when I do a fixed piggyback like this, I would actually use the eyelets on both sheaths. Most of the time I'll cut it and I'll drill it custom so that both sheaths have aligning eyelets, and that gives me a good position. But I was unable to find a position that I actually liked for the handles on these, because even though this is significantly smaller, if you look, no matter what, you're going to have at least like a 2-inch overlap of the small handle onto the large, and that just makes it really difficult to get a hold of the full large handle when you go to draw it out. If you have your small sheath kind of hanging out here over the front of the large one, it can cause some issues. So right now you see there is an overlap of the 2 inches, like I mentioned. The difference is that there's space laterally, so you can still get your hand in there to draw out your large knife. That's extremely important, guys. I see a lot of piggyback sheaths that are set up as flat and flush as possible, and while I appreciate the low profile, try drawing out your large knife comfortably. It's just not going to happen. It's really difficult, it's inconvenient, and it compromises the grip that you get on it when you first draw out. What I kind of always try to do, my philosophy is that you want the fullest grip you can have before you draw the knife, so that when it comes out, you're actually ready to just transition into using it. So that's kind of why I do it the way I do it. And you can see I've even done short spacers at the tip and mid-length spacers there, so that it's actually coming off at an angle, and that creates sufficient space there. Simultaneously, it's not flimsy or anything. This is locked in there pretty strong. So I know that sometimes having a built out wider sheath is not going to be your ideal. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but in this case, this is what TJ wanted, and this was the best way I could make it work, and he seems to be pretty happy with it. So there we go. All right, now for carry setups, you're looking at D-rings here. These are to attach a baldric sling. He already actually owns a Beach and Tactical baldric sling, so we didn't need to hook him up with an extra one. On the back side, we have a pair of molly locks. These are large Gen 3 molly locks, and if you're going to carry a heavy or a large system, guys, you want to go with the Gen 3s, and you want to make sure that you have a pack or a vest or whatever that has at least 3 vertical rows of molly. That's going to allow this, each clip makes 3 points of contact with your molly webbing, and that's just going to give you a really, really sturdy, stable platform to attach to. So anytime I set up something with mollies, I always preach about how you need to make sure that the lateral spacing is at least 1.5 inches, but then from there it jumps up immediately to 3. There's no in between. Molly webbing has a specific designated spacing of intervals of 1.5 inches. So if your molly locks are not spaced similarly, you're going to have problems getting it to getting both locks to go into their respective loops. So that's really important. But I also like to preach about making sure that they're actually going to be stable. So if you were to set this up with small mollies, like the smallest option, which only goes through 1 row, I just don't think that'd be a good option. You'd have a seesaw attached to your molly pack. Maybe that's what you like. Personally, I would hate that. I hate having things flopping around on my gear. I like everything battened down nice and tight. So that's just my preference. All right, now for accessories on here, we have a 1/2 inch by, I think this is a 6-inch ferro rod, and it's in a nice snug sleeve. So at some point, you're going to whittle this down. You're going to need more retention than the sleeve is offering. So TJ, I'm going to actually send you a piece of shock cord. I thought I did with the first go around. Maybe you just didn't send it back, but I'm going to send you another foot of shock cord, and you can tie that up however you want. What I would do is remove the lanyard from this, or I mean, you could leave the lanyard if you really want to. You could loop through the lanyard, but you're going to want to tie like a figure-8 loop or something like that that can stretch out and snap over the end of your rod, and that's going to give you the ability to maintain retention on the rod once it is narrow enough that the holder doesn't actually grip it anymore. Down here we have a nice fat EDC light from a company called Gear Light. I am not familiar with Gear Light, but TJ endorses them. TJ's company endorses them, so I would definitely go check out Gear Light, guys. This seems like a pretty sweet light. Telescoping, I always love a good telescoping lens, and there you go. Now this one was a little bit tricky. I actually used the old flashlight holder and resized it. I didn't make a whole new holder, and resizing is a little bit tedious, but I think I did a good job on it. The only real hitch with this one is that the end is the fattest part that actually will go into the sleeve. The rest of this is a smaller diameter, so you have to make the holder tight enough that it's going to keep it stable while it's actually in there. It's only gripping about this much of the fat part. The rest of it's actually not making contact. You can actually wiggle it a little bit if you try to, and that means that as you draw this out, you need it to be a little bit tight on the end, and so the full length of your draw goes a little bit slow and tight. So what I told TJ is what I would do is, as you draw, just kind of let the lens telescope, and then just kind of twist it counter or clockwise or whatever. Twist it out. It comes out pretty easy. Going back in, if you're resheathing it while it's on your pack or while it's hanging on a baldric setup, I would just use one hand to push it back in, but grab the tip of your sheath with the other to provide a little counter pressure, and you can put it in pretty quick and easy. It's not a real big deal. It's just going to feel really difficult if you don't brace the end of the sheath and you try to push that in. Your sheath is just going to want to keep turning away from you, and you're not going to be able to get that in, at least not reasonably easy. So there you go. All right, guys, so I think that's pretty much all I have for you. Let me know what you think of these beautiful knives from Tanev Knife Company, or sorry, Tanev Family Knives. Let me get that right. These beautiful handles from Voodoo Resins. I really love this. And of course, the natural gator. I'd love your opinion on how I set up the breakaway. Do you like how I have the molly locks mounted on the back here? This is actually a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle with how, you know, it's a reasonable mid-sized knife, but even that, like, the sheath just isn't massive enough to have each accessory kind of off on its own. Everything is overlapping to some degree, and that just makes it a little bit more challenging to find a way to get everything to interlock and fit properly. But I'm very happy with how this came out. I'd love your opinions down below. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Go check out Black Bear Tactical Concepts. Give him a holler if you're interested in any of the services or products that he provides. And of course, stick around for the next video. God bless.